Ladies and gentlemen, with this in mind, then, what it really does call for, as the second Bioeconomy conference is concerned, is the ability to realize how serious this value proposition is to the overall development of the region and the potential it has in our role in global affairs and development. And with that in mind, then indeed what needs to happen, of course, is such forums and such initiatives have to yield decisions. And earlier on, we heard about the importance of partnerships and co-creation. What's clear is that indeed there are a lot of institutions in existence today and associations. Within the context of national institutions, you have associations which link the private sector to government. In the case of Kenya, we have the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. In the case of the region, we have federations like the East African Federation on Agriculture, or the East African Federation on Manufacturing, or the newly established East African Federation on Transportation. But what clearly needs to happen, and indeed these institutions and frameworks exist for that reason, in order for the private sector to dialogue, to advocate, and to co-create progressive policies, legislations, and regulations that facilitate the business environment. They may be skewed towards being, in a certain sense, not inclusive to the enormous promise that new innovations and new capacities could yield. And it's for that simple reason that the missing partner, in my opinion, is, of course, the scientist and the researcher. And I need us to reflect on that, indeed, how we're able to create the necessary frameworks and structures to be inclusive to researchers and scientists, and most importantly, how compelling data could then yield to bigger long-term investment and profit realization. And that can only happen if we find ways in which we create structures and mechanisms that go simply beyond partnerships and dialogue, that go into that phase of co-creation and the ability to look at the entire ecosystem from a systemic perspective of the issues that have been brought up by way of looking at aspects of the harmonization of standards, the harmonization of policies, legislations, the regulatory environment, but at the same time compel stakeholders to complement infrastructure development by way of technology parks and other kinds of key instruments, but also that aspect of the ability to bring about the necessary capacity and innovation to transition into value chains. And what that then calls for, ladies and gentlemen, is indeed that what we're looking at is a paradigm shift in the way we create these co-created environments, where we're able to not only make decisions, but decisions based on a certain intense coordination, but also the choreography, the ability to identify what steps to take in which order in order to gain success as efficiently as possible, but also as resourceful as possible. And then, of course, the ability to promote that necessary communication to bring the entire value chain together. Indeed, from the progress that I've described by way of public-private partnership, I presume that that gives you confidence that indeed these partnerships are established in governments and at the East African community by way of the East African Business Council, but need to be developed to cater for newer ventures, newer and transformative opportunities like the bioeconomy, and in particular that important role that really has to be a resolve of this conference, that how do we get scientists and researchers at the forefront of driving transformation, because that indeed is their frontier, at the very forefront. Ladies and gentlemen, to give you further confidence, there have been various protocols and acts that have been discussed in this conference pertaining to the East African community. You might have heard them with respect to, of course, the ongoing work on the bioeconomy strategy, the protocols on phytosanitary standards, the entire development of the common market, the customs union, our efforts in standardization, metrology, quality systems, the pact that we are developing and based on the East African community and the possible link to the European Union on an EPA arrangement, thereby solidifying exactly what needs to happen by way of leveraging science, technology, and innovation, but complementary trade systems and the overall ability to integrate and build capacities beyond African borders. There's also complementary structures that are inclusive and support such an idea by way of our engagement in telecommunications and ICTs by way of a one network system, the ability to have ICT networks harmonized and their standards by way of ensuring that we're able to provide efficient and accessible communications throughout the East African community, and what's currently being built onto these networks, which include an e-commerce strategy, thereby facilitating business online. And all of this helps build that ecosystem, in addition to protocols on environments and natural ecosystems, as well as transboundary ecosystems, and a qualification system which enables qualified people and their qualifications to be recognized within the EAC. All of these key developments over time and since the inception of the EAC have endeavored to create an ecosystem. To date, the proof of this is that we trade between partner states on a 15% basis. We have 15% intra-trade. Now, you'd all agree with me that this is far too low in consideration of the fact that first world structures, by way of, if you compare European Union, trades at 60%. And so within the scope of the bioeconomy, the chances of increasing intra-trade exists too tremendously by ensuring that we're able to build onto ecosystems and therefore create highly resilient intra-trade systems, but also complement extra trade systems too. And so it's with this in mind that the confidence that I'm hoping that you gain from this is that indeed this environment exists, the demand exists by way of the number of partner states, and that will and political will to look at solutions and find solutions for the East African community. And we all have a role to play in this. As I close, ladies and gentlemen, once again I emphasize that indeed we need to increasingly take such initiatives very seriously and ensure that we create frameworks and structures that promote the necessary decisions going forward. That the SME incubation and EAC policy is extremely relevant at this time, and the bioeconomy, by way of its overall potential, being a key structure towards agricultural development, but at the same time empowering one of the most latent industries within our community, can be that facilitator of an SME policy dedicated to incubation and that transformation. And I think it's all within this room that the potential lies, but definitely the frameworks are open and can embrace this new frontier quite efficiently. There's also that approach where we need to seriously take towards ensuring that we define the markets. And as a society, the ability for us to bring about a collective engagement by all stakeholders, and as one of the panelists said, to sort of journey together so that we're able to be inclusive and solve problems as they arise. And that very important ability to look at all of this from an end-to-end ecosystem, and in particular create that capacity and structure in order to build onto this. I think that, ladies and gentlemen, with that, there would be a lot more potential to see to it that we keep making progress, as you've done on the second Bioeconomy conference, but going into the future and hopefully into the next year, we would see a new horizon by way of the amplification of what your solidarity and your networking today espouses, and the ability to lift that very important field into the future. I thank you very much, and I would like to close this conference. Thank you.